call the meeting to order. There's no one here this evening for invocation, so we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda? An approval?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Lambert, second by Commissioner Hutchison to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, next we have public comments. This is a time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. We request that you come to the podium, state your name and address, and speak respectfully. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. The commission will listen and consider your comments, but no immediate action will be taken at this time. Is there anyone that wishes to make any statements this evening? Okay. All right, we'll move on then to the action agenda. The first action item is the minutes of the August 6th and August 13th meetings.
I move to approve the minutes of the August 13th meetings.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lambert, second by Commissioner Hash to approve the minutes of August 6th and 13th meetings. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And next we have the appropriation ordinance number 15.
I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 15. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wentz, second by Commissioner Hutchison to approve appropriation ordinance number 15. Any further discussion? I did have a couple things I highlighted on here. It looks like there was maybe more significant cost to Lockett Technologies this go around. Was there any significant issue that we ran into?
No, one thing is that there was a bill from a month ago and there was a little dispute with it, so we didn't pay it last time. So they reissued another bill and took a couple things off. Nothing out of the ordinary this time.
The other thing that I noticed on here is that we've already paid the release of insurance proceeds for 7/16. However, that's on the agenda for tonight for formal approval. Do we normally do that ahead of time?
Sometimes we'll write the check and then we'll go ahead and sign it, but we'll hold it until you take formal action. So what this allows us to do is to go ahead and issue that check tomorrow. If it wasn't on this appropriation ordinance, then we couldn't do it. So,
Okay.
Are we able to pull that off of the appropriation ordinance and authorize that payment separately if they choose to pass the resolution to release the proceeds? We have to do it all at once. Because if they approve the appropriation ordinance, and that check's a part of it, then it gets authorized. But if they don't approve the resolution to return the proceeds, then it doesn't get authorized.
Okay, what I would say is probably we can pass the resolution, or not the resolution, sorry. The appropriation. With the exception of that, I suppose. And then if it passes, then we can. or if
That is part of the motion.
Yeah.
Resolution.
Yeah.
Approve payment of that check.
Yeah.
Prior to the approval, well, we should have maybe we should have. I guess I'm asking because if it has to be an action item.
Yeah, are you talking about the return of proceeds that are underneath here?
Yeah.
I tell you what we can do. Let's do it this way. You can approve, if you so choose. You can approve the appropriation ordinance number 15 with the exception of that particular proceed to be returned. And then in the motion to return the proceeds, just go ahead and put in there that it is then approved for that to be paid out in accordance with the appropriation ordinance. Or
Could you approve it pending the outcome of the action item?
yeah, I think that's what I was saying in a very long-winded way. Let's just do it that way. Yeah. Well, I was thinking about moving it, but we really, yeah, so yeah, go ahead and prove it, pending the approval of the resolution 2025-2209. Just do it that way.
Have an amended motion at this time for ordinance number 15.
I would amend or the motion to include what was said. Whatever.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Wentz, second by Commissioner Hatch, to approve ordinance number 15 pending the outcome of resolution 2025-2209 or others. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, the next item we have is ordinance 2025-3238 court costs.
So good evening.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Sales tax. Can we table it for a second? I'm sorry about
Absolutely, no problem. Just get that.
resolution 2025-2208 sales tax. My apologies.
Mayor Commissioners, you have in front of you 5 options for ballot questions related to sales tax. And the reason for this is following the public hearing that we held last week that appeared to be favorable. It looked like the community was in support of the Community Activity Center. In keeping with our discussion about funding options to be able to fund that facility, we had talked about different grant funding, private donations, as well as a low interest loan through USDA, Community Facilities Loan, that requires repayment. And so one of the options we talked about was a sales tax used to repay that loan. So that's what this resolution and action is related to, is generating the funds. We're in the process of filling out the application for that loan right now. So it's and that process is very similar to the bonding process, in that we'll have to do some paperwork to issue it over to USDA. USDA backs the loan, they hand us the money up front, and then we set up a repayment schedule. So it feels a little bit backwards right now, but the reason for that is that this resolution is on our critical path. This is one of our milestones to progress. November 4th is the general election. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, all right. November 4th is the general election. And the county clerk requires all ballot questions to be submitted to them by September 1st of each year. This is our last meeting right before September 1st. And so we want to make sure that we get this in front of you. There is a little bit of time if you choose to not pass it tonight, that we could call a special meeting and still get it passed and get it on the ballot. But we have to have it to them by September 1st. So we'll walk through here. If you choose to, all right, so let me go through the analysis here. It's on the memo that's in front of you. Discussion has been about a 1% citywide retailer sales tax. Conservatively, we've estimated that would generate about 1.2 million a year, or a total of 12 million over 10 years. The idea is, of that 12 million generated over 10 years, it would generate about 10 million toward design and construction of a facility, and then the other 2 million, or about 200,000 a year, toward maintenance and operations of the facility. This 10-year special purpose retailer sales tax would end at the end of 10 years. We've talked about that kind of a finite ending timeline for some time. We do know that looking at the sales tax revenue generation over the last several years, it has generated between 1.2 to 1.6 million since, gosh, what was that? It was 1.1 to 1.2 from 2009 to 2019, and since 2020, it's generated 1.2 to 1.6 million annually. Now, this is the city's portion of the sales tax. We also get a portion of county sales tax, but what we're discussing is just the city portion of the sales tax. So that's important to remember too. So again, we're basing this on the conservative estimates of generating $1.2 million annually. We know that the total cost of the Community Activity Center, we've talked about that at the public hearing, is about 17 million. So this would generate about 10 million of that 17 million needed to construct the facility. So again, it's important. We're still going to need grants. We're still going to need private donations, but this is one step toward that. When we look at these ballot questions, you can look through those, we'll talk through those, and you can choose one to put on and pass a resolution that then calls for the public hearing and puts this question on the ballot. It has to go to the ballot. Any kind of sales tax requires the vote of the public. So if the public passes it by majority vote on November 4th, then the way that the questions are written, it would go into effect April 1st. The reason for that is the state statute requires a minimum 3-month waiting period for them to go into effect. If the general public does not pass by majority vote the sales tax, then the sales tax does not go into effect. What the process is, let's say that it passes and we send it to go into effect. If for some reason between now and then we realize that we don't need to go forward with this project, then we wouldn't proceed with passing the ordinance that enacts it. So there's still one more step after the vote happens that you have to pass an ordinance to actually make it to go into effect. So there's still some more stopgaps along the way. But right now, the milestone is trying to get the question in front of the county clerk before the September 1st deadline so that it can be on the November 4th ballot. Did I confuse everybody? No? Okay, I can keep trying if you want. Yeah. I'm kidding. All right, so in front of you are 4 options for questions. I did email these out to you a little earlier. We also put at your desk a copy of the resolution. So first I want you to work through the questions, ask questions, figure out which one you like. The resolution is there so that you can see what the language of that. Included in that is the question that aligns with option 1. It's the same as option 1 on your choices. That staff recommendation is to use that language, which is 1% citywide special purpose retailer sales tax for the purpose of payment and financing costs related to design and construction of the community activity center at Razor Field, parking and improvements appurtenant thereto, and maintenance and operations at the same facility, with the sales tax to commence on April 21st, 2026, and to terminate 10 years after the commitment. So it's very short, very sweet, very simple to understand. That's staff's recommendation right now. So then I'll open it up for your questions, your discussion.
The USDA loan for the $10 million has what type of interest?
We were told the estimate is around 4.5%. We won't know for sure until we get a little bit further into the process.
However, if we just do this, there's not necessarily a need to do the USDA loan, right?
There would be a necessity to do some kind of financing mechanism. So if we pass the sales tax, we're going to generate that money over time, but it's only going to come in every year. So if we, okay, so this is where it gets confusing. Back up over the blueprint to build grant. If we apply for blueprint to build and we receive that $2.5 million, there's a requirement that construction be done in 2026. If we simply do the sales tax and we generate 1.2 million a year, we're going to have to wait 10 years to bank that $10 million. So we would have to wait 10 years to start building a facility. If we do the community facilities loan or some other mechanism of financing, we could even issue straight bonds. That allows us to get that money up front so that we can start building right now and then repay it over time.
Yeah, that was my question. Can we just do a straight bond instead of doing USDA financing? And aren't the rates better for that than they are USDA financing at this point in time?
So yes, we can.
Okay.
We can do that. And it may actually save us money in the long run. 2 reasons. So the USDA community facilities loan requires Davis-Bacon wages. What that is prevailing wage law. And so it typically adds about 15 to 20% to the cost of construction because contractors have to pay prevailing wage, which is pretend Kansas was a union state. They have to pay union wages, even though we're a non-union state. So it's just what happens when we get federal money. The other requirement is that we have to hire a third-party grant administrator. So yes, we're starting the process here, but if we decide to continue and go with that, we would have to hire a third-party grant administrator, which could add another $40,000 to $50,000 to the cost
Or more.
Yes.
And the reason for doing USDA with the hospitals, there was a grant component. That grant component is not available with this, or is it?
It's not. It used to be, but this year, our federal legislators decided that all of the grant allocation funding needed to go toward water and sewer projects, which are also under the umbrella of community facilities. So initially when we looked at this, we thought that 55% of that community facilities loan could be returned to us in grant form, which would be great, but that's not available to us right now. If we go back to talk a little bit about the Davis-Bacon and grant administrator, that's also a requirement of that blueprint to build grant with CDBG requirements, because CDBG funding flows down through the Fed. So that is also a requirement there. We do have a grant agreement for grant administration that we're reviewing right now with our Central Regional Planning, and that we could bring to you next week to help us out to finish up that grant application as well. But again, those are some requirements that could actually add to the cost. As far as bond rates right now, Amber, we were just on a rating call. I don't know, they didn't really allude to rates though, did they?
What they've given us has been about that.
About 4.5.
Yeah.
So. Kevin, oh, okay, yeah, Kevin Cowell, Gilmore and Bell. Kevin, do you have a feel for market rates right now for general obligation bonds?
Generally, and I'll give you the disclaimer that you probably hear all the time, things change every day. So I don't have a crystal ball, but 20-year bonds, and if that's what you were considering, or maybe a little longer than that, I would say 20-year bonds with a good credit rating, which I think you all would have. Currently, maybe an average rate that's in the upper threes or low fours, and if it gets a little longer term than that, if you get out to 25 or more years, it's going to be a little higher. City of Topeka, I was there last night for a bond sale, and it was a utility revenue bond, which is not as good of a credit as a general obligation bond would be. And it's a 30-year bond, so really long amortization, and their average rate was 4.6 something. So I say that to indicate, if you're less than 30 years, it's probably going to be less than 4.6 under current conditions. And my best guess would be, as I said, upper threes to something in the lower fours on average, at least currently.
I think the other thing to note too is at our last meeting, we had you talk about doing a bond sale for some of the other financing projects, the streets project that we were looking at. That bond sale is going to happen October 1st. So we'll have a good feel by then as far as what rates are happening.
But it's really kind of a wash on rates then. It's more of the fee to apply. It's gonna be, and then we're a wash on Davis Bacon. Okay.
So regardless whether we went the bonding route or whether we went a facility loan route, we're still gonna have to repay it. And so tonight's discussion is talking about that repayment mechanism.
Oh, as we're estimating a potential of $10 million for the facility, we also have interest on that of potentially 4.5%. Where do we get that money from?
So, again, conservative estimate, right? So historically, sales tax has been above 1.2 million generating annually. We don't expect to see that drop. So sales tax functions as a percentage of cost of goods sold. We all know that cost of goods sold has gone up. We don't anticipate it to go down to pre-2019 levels anytime soon, which is frustrating and is challenging, but at the same time is beneficial for something like this. So if we conservatively plan toward generating 10 million toward construction, that leaves us a buffer. If we generate 1.6 million, for example, then that leaves us a buffer of 400,000 generated a year. And that could help out paying with that interest payment. If we don't generate enough, then we're back to relying on grants and private donations to help make up that cost and that expense over time. Ideally, you would generate enough cash flow and enough private donations to be able to pay it all very quickly and not have to incur a lot of interest.
I guess for me, option one seems to be a bit less restrictive. Additionally, if you have the ability to potentially do 16 million and perhaps fundraising doesn't go as planned, there's some wiggle room there. I think the other ones restrict us and put us in not a great position of having to scale down the project. Although I do think there is some room for that in order for it to be passable. I think there could be some scaling. However, with that, even if if option one allows us to be a bit more flexible, would be my thoughts.
I guess with option 5, that adds at the end the provision of basically once to sunset earlier, if accumulation of sufficient revenue is provided, payments of all costs of construction and financing have happened, it's giving all of those provisions. So theoretically, we don't take more than we need. but it also limits not to exceed $10 million, the project and construction and design, and then 1.5 million for operations and maintenance reserve fund. So, I mean, I like the idea of allowing it to sunset earlier based on those things, but then it also doesn't give us any avenue for the potential of paying any type of interest that is obviously going to be at least a portion of this.
I feel a bit conflicted. I like the idea of sunsetting it. I also am concerned about setting kind of a limitation when we're really working with pretty, I think good numbers. I think that the folks that have put this plan together have got us really close, but without knowing exactly tax dollars that are coming in, operations costs that we're really looking at, what the construction costs will end up being, I worry about limiting or creating sort of an unnecessary guard or limitation that might hinder our ability to bring this to fruition. I don't know that there's any way to make an informal acknowledgement of sunsetting it upon, I don't know which of us will be sitting here at the time to be able to make that decision at that point. But that would be my concern about it. I like the idea of it, and as a taxpayer, I want to know that I'm not just starting this forever and it's never going away. But I worry about the limitations it might pose for us being able to do this.
But all of these have a 10-year limitation anyway.
Period,
Yeah.
right? It's,
So-
yeah, not the, but sunsetting it early. Do you have an idea of what metric you would use to determine that? At this point, we would be done with it.
To determine when we would, well, I mean, that's based on like interest that we'd have paid off. It's based on the amount of private donations that would potentially come in, and then however many grants are received. So like, I mean, there's so many unknowns that it's hard to make a specific determination, but without doing that, I don't want to over collect. I only want to take what we need, I guess what I'm saying. And if we don't have an avenue to sunset it prior, if we are successful in those and be hopeful that potentially could happen, then we're going to collect money that can't be, I mean, that essentially would go for the long term of maintenance of the facility and running the facility, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it's more than I think what we were initially asking for, However, the center is going to continue to need to run, and that cost is also not going to go down over the years, and that also will increase as other things do. But I do like to have an avenue for sunsetting. I do understand also that you can't put a limitation, putting a limitation of a firm dollar amount. It's so easy to go over that. You can do that in the month prior, and then you're already have already caused issue with your ordinance. And so being too specific doesn't work either.
And I think that was some of the
Yeah.
conflict that I was concerned about, is if wanting to create an avenue for sunset, I agree wholeheartedly with. I think it's difficult for us to be able to articulate that language in a ballot measure at this point. And I think that's where if we're talking about creating that right now, right here, I struggle with that. I do believe in putting together an avenue for early sunset if possible. I think that's good.
Then if it is passed, and then the ordinance will come forward that has to be formal at that time, can the sunset be part of the ordinance?
Kevin, can you speak to that? What's our avenue for sunsetting early if we don't indicate an early sunset date in the ballot question?
So you can always sunset with the same level of formality as you implemented the sales tax. And that doesn't mean going and having an election on the sales tax. It means you would pass an ordinance. So if you have a successful election, you'll implement the sales tax by ordinance. And so if in a number of years you've collected, or a future governing body has collected what it views as sufficient or whatever the case may be, then you can terminate by ordinance. There's a time component to that, and you all may know this already, but it takes a calendar quarter to both implement and also to terminate. So if you were at 8 years and you had collected everything that you feel like you need to collect, and instead of allowing the sales tax to stay in place for 10 years, you're going to sunset it or terminate it at 8 years, and that's April 1 of 2034. If you give notice by April 1 of 2034, the Department of Revenue is going to collect until or through June 30 of 2034. So just know that there's kind of some forward thinking and looking you have to do if you really have in the future a number that once you hit that number, you want the sales tax to end. That you sometimes have to use forecasting. You say, well, we're collecting $100,000 a month, and we're now $300,000 from what we wanted, and we'd want a sales tax or terminate that sales tax at $300,000 more. Then you may vote at that time to terminate it and give the Department of Revenue notice, and then the 3 months of collections will continue before they can terminate. So that may be more information than you wanted, but you can do it by ordinance. And again, once the Department of Revenue gets that ordinance, it's going to take them at least 3 months, and then the first day of a calendar quarter will be their termination date.
I have a possible solution. Is there a chance that in our ordinance, if this passes and if we put an ordinance in place, that part of that would be that every year we do an annual review for the entire length of the loan or the bond mechanism or whatever, or the sales tax, and that we do that analysis at the end of every year, and it's in the ordinance, so we have to do it, and that would even bind future commissions to taking a good hard look at it.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I guess.
Good idea.
And in that way, we know the total cost of the project and all of that part's done. It's hard for us to do this now, not knowing any of those.
But then with that, then if we can make that agreement that that's the plan for us to put that into the ordinance, then it would seem like the option that gives us the greatest latitude in being able to structure this is the best option, which would be that option 1, which is the staff recommendation.
I have one more thing that's not going to be popular. So we had visited about the potential of, or maybe we haven't, but we have an option in here, option 4, that's only a 0.5% citywide sales tax. 0.5%'s not going to get us where we need to be. There's really no way that it would 3/4 get us where we need to be without putting us, get us reasonably where we need to be without putting us over. Again, just as a mechanism in place, it's not going to generate, then it potentially still could generate the 1.2, but we don't know that. It could, but we're counting on only based on the math, 75% of that.
My only concern with that would be, it gets us back to that bad guy situation where we get to shave down the project if funds don't come in. You put that in place and then, hopefully all of the fundraising comes in, but what if it doesn't? Then we get to start taking a blade to that project. Ideally, some of that would be done before. However, if it's not, then, I think that's the unfortunate position you put the commission into. If we did it that way.
And I'm a little concerned about the maintenance and cost of running it after the 10 years is up. We're having trouble finding money to maintain the Brown Grand building, which we already own. And now we're wanting to build a 17, more like 20 million by the time it's built. And need to consider all the maintenance. If we cut it back to 3/4, then you don't have that extra money coming in that maybe could be put in the fund just for maintenance and upkeep and staff, because you're gonna have to hire staff. And I've already heard people saying, well, it'll need to be open 24 hours a day so we can go because we work during the day. Or
Well,
we work at,
Most community centers aren't open 24 hours a
I
day,
know
but they are
that.
open early and late. I think that might be an unreasonable request to have it be 24 hours.
but even then, you're gonna run more than 8 hours. You're gonna be open 16 hours maybe.
So our analysis that resulted in the $178,000 a year estimated annual operating cost was based on, first, just the analysis of about 10 to 12 other facilities and their budgets, then tailoring it down to what we would expect we would need based on looking at that. We were looking at operating, and Chris, help me if I'm wrong here, but 7 days a week, 7 AM to 9 PM is what we're basing that on.
I think if we're able to agree putting in the ordinance, an avenue for early sunset, then I would opt, I would suggest we maintain the 1%, to help us make sure that we get our goals early and out of the way, rather than maybe limiting some of the creating that limitation on the front end of it. I'm not excited to pay any more than we have to, but I'd rather make sure that we're able to do it right the first time than to try to figure out how to piecemeal it together after the fact, because we're just coming up a bit short. And somebody challenged me on this, and I started doubting myself. The whole rate, right? So I mentioned that at the last meeting, and then somebody challenged me on it. What's a very straightforward way to understand the whole rate?
Very good question. Brenda, you and I have talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for every $1.45 that is collected in sales tax, 45 cents of that comes from outside 66901. And so that means that approximately 1/3 of that sales tax that's collected comes from outside of our 66901. So all of that money that goes towards the activity center, I mean, it's probably a stretch to say it this way, but almost 1/3 of at least of that is being paid for by everybody else that drives here.
So that would mean other people in the county too. So,
But if we had a,
Well, everybody's gonna pay that 1%.
Exactly.
Yeah, if we bump it up, yeah, right.
you said 66901.
so if we had a pull rate of $1, that would basically mean that every dollar that we collect here is paid here.
Right, right.
If we had a pull rate of 90.96, it would mean that we're spending
Or somewhere else,
than here.
right? And the cool thing is, we're 12 out of over 600 cities in Kansas in our pull rate. That's how high our pull rate is. If you're ranking them all.
Does it start with $1 like baseline? Is that
That's
the
your
point of
answer.
origin? Okay, it had, and like I said, I was not able to adequately answer the question, so I thought I better. But basically, yeah, that every $1.45 is coming back from somewhere else. That was not satisfactory to this individual, which I regretted, but it was the right number.
Not satisfactory that they didn't think that was correct, or,
I think there were a number of things that I'm not sure what information I would have been able to provide that would have been sufficient to this individual.
but you could point them to the Department of Revenue. And, I mean, you can Google pull rates or,
All worthy suggestions.
yes.
They were declined.
Okay, well, that's the best I can do.
Yeah, but I thought for my own benefit,
Uh-huh.
it'd be good for me to refresh. my-
Yes, yes. So it's exciting that we could get that much of it paid for from other people.
I guess, I mean, with the sunset and your suggestion, Ashley, I do think that that's a lot more appealing, because we don't know, any of us in this room are gonna still be here in 8 years, 10 years, that's too hard to determine. So we hope that whoever does take over after we're not here is thoughtful about that, and that we don't take more than we need for this project.
Of note, and Amy, I can't remember if you put this in your memo or not, it was the part about the school district. Because there's a little bit of the back and forth is because protectionism of this for our project in the future. But you explained that I didn't know this, I thought we were capped at 2.
Yeah.
But with that special tax, which is what we're doing,
Yeah,
that still allows for a 1%.
it does. So I was the same as you. I thought we were completely capped at 2, no matter what. But as we got to looking, and Kevin was gracious to give me a lot of his time over the last few days and kind of talk through it. And Kevin explained it, help me if I'm wrong here, but we have a capacity of up to 2% for general purpose sales tax for cities. We're using 1% right now. Our sales tax was passed half in 1981, half in 1982 for the total of 1. And because it would happen before 1984, it doesn't have a sunset. So that 1% general purpose sales tax the city has right now, that will not sunset unless you pass an ordinance to tell it to stop. So we have another 1% general purpose sales tax available to us. We also have a 1% special purpose sales tax to us. The difference between those, special purpose can only go for 10 years, and that's what we're talking about here, and has to go for a specific project, and you have to say it in here. General purpose, you can make it go for more than 10 years. And it has to be for more than one thing. And the way that Kevin explained it is that you want it to go for municipal purposes. So let's say, we know a few years ago, the school district approached us and asked for our support in the way of sales tax to be able to help them fund facility improvements to the high school. Let's say they came back again to do that after we'd already passed the special purpose sales tax. You have up to 1% capacity in that general purpose sales tax to do that. And again, you could do that for longer than 10 years if you wanted. And it would go to the vote of the public. The way the question could be worded there would be that it would go to lower debt service liability of the school district and possibly for public infrastructure improvements. And so that wording would allow you then, so let's say that they redid a facility right there where the current high school was. We've talked before about how Cedar Street is very narrow, and Jeremy would like to move the water line out from under the street and get it in the grass like we have in other street improvements. That sales tax could go for a portion of being able to do that to improve traffic flow around the school as part of that project, as an example. So there's still capacity if they were to come to us to look at it in the future. I think that your guys' idea with respect to this one, to take a look at it, and if we can sunset it early, is another avenue to be able to help them out as well. So doing this doesn't lock us out from help.
It doesn't, I mean, the other part of that is a potential 10.5% sales tax in our community versus already going up to 9.5 for this, actually. So that being said, again, love the idea of sunsetting early. Can't control it.
I don't know if it's worth mentioning here too, our state legislator worked really hard this last year to drop the 4% sales tax on groceries, and that didn't end up going into effect this July. So it's not on everything. I'm sorry, not 4%, the whole 6% that the state enacts on groceries did go down. So hopefully we're experiencing a little bit of savings in that way as people that are going to the store.
So currently in our county, when people, if this would pass, people will pay 3% sales tax on groceries. Correct. If this passes.
I think there was a question too with public hearing about CASHA requirements. Chris, do you want to speak to that at all? We don't have a complete answer yet, but
On the volleyball, basketball.
yeah, if this facility would be assuming we would blueprint to build and some of the limitations that they had, what would it take to get us so that ages 7 to 12 competitions for volleyball and basketball could be played there?
So yeah, wood flooring is kind of one of the main ones, and then seating capacity. From what I've taken from Skylar, it's roughly 600 for your main court. But I think it's close to 600 per court, but it's a minimum of 600 for your main court. But with this design right now, since we haven't had the actual size dimensions, I don't know for specifically how many we can get in there for volleyball. The other opposition that Skylar brought up is, if we turn the court, go sideways for basketball, and you have varsity at the high school, JV at the Rage Fields, area, and then if kids are playing both, it's pretty hard to get them back and forth, so. That was his other concern on it, but as far as Acacia, it's really the wood floor and then the seating capacity.
How many Acacia events have we had to turn out in our community due to lack of resources? Facilities.
I don't know the answer to that.
I think that if we have the opportunity to expand this, not necessarily within cost, but within flexibility, I think that's, so we would be able to help support the school and the facility. We would also be able to help to support the school if they have plans for infrastructure down the road. But I think that that's a really big piece of this, not only in support of helping this to pass, because I think a lot of people want to see that ability to play here or to have that as an opportunity, an option. But I also really worry, because our school does need infrastructure improvement. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I think it's going to be really hard for the school to be able to find a way to do that if we have a fairly significant community activity center that they're already paying for. So I really want to be as future minded as possible, helping us to achieve what we're trying to achieve with this, but allowing there to be some mutual benefit. I mean, benefit for the entire community, but not create additional obstacles down the road for what they're going to need to do. And if we have the court and the ability to structure it, put the seating in as necessary, I really think that we need to figure out how to make that happen.
We'll have more information at the end of the month is when Hutton's plans are supposed to be released to the public. So then we'll be able to get actual dimensions and map it out, but we won't really know until then.
And I think that's one of the frustrating things in general about, I don't think that that's a fault of anyone in this room, but there's always like a different step that we need to figure out before we can figure out this step, but we can't figure out this step until that step's done. But we need to figure out if we're gonna, I mean, we need to figure out how to pose this to the voters to get an idea of whether they could support this or not. And it's just. There are a lot of good questions that we have good answers for and some good questions that we don't quite have good answers for, but this is a step we're at and this is what we need to figure out.
The other, I guess with the Acacia, discussion, when we got the very first, before we scaled down, the one that you brought to us, Brenda, that was $22 million, but that was for Acacia approved. Was it not?
But yeah, it was
More than 22?
It was 17 with an inflation of 20.
Yeah.
Deflation rate of 20.
To be Acacia approved, Jen?
Mhm.
I thought the original plan that was brought, I thought was $22 million, then it would taken back to scale down and became 17 million.
I don't think we ever hit.
Never did.
The inflation rate was 20 and a half, maybe. But that was higher
I
than
remember
their inflation rate.
20,
The 20?
yeah.
I'll look back, cause I thought that, originally the plan did have the Acacia, but it never has. The wood floors and the seating,
The original one was.
but that was within $17 million.
It was somewhere around there, 17, I don't remember the exact figure, but the inflation rate brought it to the 20. That's what they put in there.
I was thinking we we're still a little bit tight on seating on it. That was still a little bit of a question mark, but maybe I'm wrong. And those numbers were from the middle of 2024. So if you add 5% inflation every year, then that's, we're pretty close to where we're at now.
But it was the same kind of setup. You had the movable bleachers, that you put in the courts or on the edges, but our original one had more space around the outside than this one does.
Which allows for more seating.
I think it said 600. I was looking up the size of the gym location, and it was 600 seating.
Yeah.
Per court. And the regulations are if you host sub-state volleyball, you have to have 2 side-by-side courts under the same roof. So then that would put it at 1,200 to be able to host sub-state on side-by-side courts. A lot of seating.
It's
So that would take you back to that that probably should be hosted at like a high school varsity gymnasium, is what that.
Right, I don't anticipate this court being a host for some of those more significant events that should be hosted at the high school. But if we're able to host a regular game,
Right.
why not, it has additional court space, which I think could be utilized, and that is something, that should be able to be fit into this current project. That doesn't have a setting up for the larger event.
Okay, so what we're asking for tonight is, for you to consider resolution, and I don't, 2208 regarding the sales tax, authorizing the question for the election and selecting the ballot question.
I think option one is probably the most flexible. And that's what we should go with.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve resolution 2025-2208 with language from option one as we were presented. Second.
March.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hash, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve appropriation or resolution, I apologize. Resolution 2025-2208. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. So then the next thing that we will do is get this to the county clerk. The vote will happen on November 4th. And then if the outcome is favorable, then we'll bring you the ordinance that enacts the sales tax 3 months out, which would be anticipated to be that April 21st, 2026. And included in that, we'll put that language in that you had asked about, annual analysis to determine if it can sense it.
Okay, moving on to ordinance 2025-3238 court costs.
To kind of give you just a little bit of background on this, Megan and I were talking a couple months ago about making sure that we were covering the fees of what it would cost for an attorney, prosecutor, the judge and everything. And we started looking at some of the fees, and as you can see, that the average monthly court cost is $1824.98. And then the average fines that come in is a little over $4,397. Which when you add what it costs to hold the court with the judge, prosecutor, court clerk, and two officers, $4,885. And then out of that $80 court cost, $5 is allocated to police training. 23 is admitted to the state, and that's a standard by the state that $23 of the 80 automatically goes to the state. And then the $51.50 remains to help cover any court related expenses if we have someone in jail or whatever, that comes out of that. If the jail would charge a daily fee, that all comes out of that. So looking at that, I propose that so let me back up. The fee is $80 and I propose to raise it $20 to $100. And this would help out with part of our training. It would raise our $5 allocation for police training to $20 to help fund any training that officers may go to, and to offset the budget. It's not going to support the whole budget, but it wouldn't increase. I wouldn't have to increase my budget on getting guys to get training and stuff. I've called around to different courts throughout the area, and we are pretty low compared to everybody. No, we don't always have to be comparable to everybody, but we are one of the lowest around. Most everybody is $100 or higher. So that's why I felt this raising it by $20 to make it $100 still leaves us on the lower end, but still makes it feasible for people when they're paying their fines.
Is the 5150 actually adequate in covering the court related expenses? Did you guys analyze that?
Yeah. Excuse me. It is for the most part when it comes to court related expenses. So we will issue bench warrants on occasion. We don't take a lot of people into custody. Most municipal cases don't involve jail time. We don't have a probation officer, so there's no costs there.
So this is only municipal court.
Yeah,
Right.
So anything that's wrote a city ticket, that comes from municipal court. If we write a county ticket or, send an affidavit for a county arrest or whatever, that all goes through county court. So I just want to make sure that sometimes people get confused as they think the court is all one. Well, no, it's broke down to most of all our stuff that are felonies go to county and a lot of our misdemeanors stay in city court here.
So the training budget would raise from $5 to $25 or $5 to $20?
25.
25, okay.
Yeah.
so that's where the $20
Yes,
increase.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then, as we were looking through the ordinance today, just reading over, getting prepared, we noticed on section 12.6 under F, it just didn't, this was the way it was wrote with the old one. We kind of cleaned that up because it was confusing because it said additional to other court costs provided this section, the sum of $10 shall be assessed against every person pled guilty. So basically, the way I read it is $10 on top of the court cost would be assessed, and that's not what we're trying here. We're just saying from the $100 per case collected as referenced in A, the sum of $25 assessed would be applied to the training budget out of that, the $100 court cost. It was kind of confusing the way it read before.
Chief, is that kind of in line with what? Because everybody's always talking about they don't have enough money to operate, law enforcement does. Is that $25? Is that comparable to other places?
So I checked with other people. Some people don't use it for training. Some people do. A lot of people use the diversion fund to offset the budget. So it's really kind of hard to get a good feel on what everybody is doing on that. Because a lot of people are using diversion money for equipment and stuff for law enforcement.
What do we use our diversion fund for?
Our diversion fund a lot of times goes to numerous places. So the diversion fund sometimes will go to law enforcement. It goes to, we've directed a good amount lately to animal control, to the shelter, call it pound, the shelter, because they're hurting really bad, especially with us upping our enforcement of dogs and stuff like that. So it's gone to that. Usually it's law enforcement and the shelter.
So through last year, the county, they have a diversion fund too, because we also have cases that go there. So I mean, we contribute to the diversion fund there. Rob was paid a little bit on our camera system for the block camera system for our tag readers. So
I move to approve ordinance 2025-3238.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hutchison, second by Commissioner Lamberts to approve ordinance 2025-3238. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
thank you.
Next, we have 425 West 9th Street demolition bid.
I'm Bruno today. But I'll be less wordy. Sorry, Bruno. So anyway, we opened bids on August 12th and for 425 West 9th. And we did receive 3. We had Dalton Dirt Works at 5,100, Smith Construction at 4,800, and Stark Demolition, they're out of Salina. And they were 9,700. Looks like it's gonna take the structure. This is a trailer house that we've had numerous nuisances over the last couple of years. And must be that the garage is still good, so that's gonna stay there. The concrete slabs will stay. So I don't believe there's a whole lot of vegetation to be removed, but it's mainly for that. No basement or anything like that, so. Bruno recommends Smith Construction at 4,800.
Did you happen to mention how long it would take them to get to that project?
No, there wasn't anything in there that stated when they would start. And I know I think they're still currently doing the school. But Brad does have kids. And it's possible they might do this. I know he told us he was looking for a job for them too, so.
Move to accept the. Okay,
No.
I move to accept the low bid of 4,800 from Smith Construction Services for the demolition of the trailer house and removal of blight and uncontrolled growth.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Wentz. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next, we have the Pee Wee Field lighting and pole replacement.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is a project that's been on the CIP for a little while now. As I've mentioned before, we've been in an ongoing battle with the lights that are there now, being as old as they are. Getting so hot, the ceramic inside of it actually fuses to the fixture itself. And then we've got wires melting, and then last year actually light fell, raining sparks. So it's been an ongoing battle for some time now. So I went out to quotes from 4 different companies. I said several in there, but Hood's Heating and Air gave us the best option to replace the lights fixtures themselves with a new LED fixture. So it gave us the best option to upgrade that cost-wise as well. On top of that, several of the poles are gonna have to be replaced, and that's something that wasn't in the original plan. But those poles are about 50 years old and twisted, splintered. A lot of them, you can stick a screwdriver through the bottom of them. Prairie Lane's been working with us to identify some of those really compromised ones. So 2 of the ones that are on the infield, which is my initial plan to start with the infields. 2 of the ones are fairly new. I don't remember what year they were replaced, but they are a newer pole and structurally sound. So the remaining 6 on the infield would need to be replaced while we do the lights at the time. So you can see Prairie Line's cost in there, $3,882 per pole, a 55-foot pole. And then Hood's price for the infield lights, which will replace all the lights with a 4 lights per pole, for a total amount of $64,580. And then on the quote, you can see kind of what their plan for the outfield was. Going to an LED, obviously they're a lot brighter. They cover more space. My plan is to reevaluate the outfield once we get the infield covered, because the 2 on the infield and out going towards the outfield, they're already almost covering half the outfield. So my plan is to maybe restructure some of those 4 poles in the back, in the outfield, I mean, hopefully go down to 2 to get the same coverage as well. So hopefully that's a option, but I can't guarantee that right now. But as far as the plan today, to start with the infield on both fields to replace the lights, and then 6 of those poles.
Sidford was the best option. Was it the cheapest option?
Yes. Several of the engineering companies, like lighting engineers, they won't even put their light on a wooden pole. They wanted the steel. So you're looking at 212 to 260,000 for some of those ones that I got back. And they basically restructured the whole lighting system, so it's not 8 poles on each one, but the way they light configure it, to your new wiring, new all the electrical, everything, then the steel post. Yes, they're gonna last forever, but wood poles for more of an economical reason lasted 50 years already, so. Still within what we originally budgeted this time.
The actual lights would be the same ones that the lighting engineers would recommend as well.
They're all different. They're all LED, but they're a different model, style, if you will. But yes, they're all sports daily lighting.
Some of them kind of are a bar, some of them are square, more of our collectors. These are like you see on the picture, more of a round picture. It's the same style that Hood's put up on the other field already. 2 poles on the Dorian and then 2 on the southeast field. And then 1 on the K18 field. They're all the same type of style. This one's a little bit lower lumen. It's a shorter pole than those, but it's all the same style.
And those are providing adequate lighting for those fields.
For the poles that are on them, yeah, but it's not the whole field. Yeah. But yeah, they're a lot brighter, sure. Those are all insurance. From broken poles.
I move to accept the quote from Hood Heating and Air for infill lighting on Judson and Meyer Field, the amount of $64,580, and Ferryland Electric for $23,280 to be paid from CIP.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hutchison, second by Commissioner Lambert, to approve the PV field lighting and pole replacement. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, next we have a resolution 2025-2209, return of proceeds.
This resolution would return a portion of the insurance money received by the owner of 716 West 7th when the house burned. And Bruno's deemed it safe now, and she wanted her money. It'll be $13,031.52. And at that time, we did have a public hearing, so he recommends that be released to her.
I'd move to approve resolution 2025-2209.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lambert, second by Commissioner Hutchison to approve resolution 2025-2209. Do we need to add to that to fully accept the appropriation ordinance number 15 at this time as well?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. The next is the league voting delegates.
Mayor and Commissioners, every year the league holds an annual conference in October, and at that time they vote to adopt the statement of municipal policy, which guides the league lobbyists in their work with legislative session next year. So work on those policies is beginning in August. If you're interested, I can send you out the information again. If you want to be a participant in any of those policy meetings. At the league conference, we are allowed 2 voting delegates. Typically, I go to the conference every year, so I'll be there and be one of those. And we assign a commissioner to be another voting delegate. Amy's already indicated an interest in going, so she could be one of them as well. We try to designate a couple of alternates too. There is room also in the budget for one more person to attend the conference. So if you're so inclined, let me know this week because costs go up next week. Registration fees go up next week. Purpose of the action tonight is to appoint two voting delegates and 2 alternates for the 2025 league annual conference.
So interested in being an alternate?
I still would like to go. I don't know what my schedule looks like.
As an additional this year,
Alternate.
as an alternate. Okay. Anyone else?
I can go.
Okay, then I would move to appoint, I'm gonna be
I've
quick.
been.
I'm gonna be quick on this then. I move to appoint Amy Jackson and Amy Legg as league voting delegates and Chuck Lamberts and Marcia Lentz as alternates.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hutchison, second by Commissioner Hash to approve the league voting delegates. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Grant agreement for the downtown trees.
Mayor and Commissioners, this was a big discussion item at our last meeting and that was tabled. And this is an agreement for a grant that we were awarded in November of 24 for replacing the trees downtown and some other areas. It did get placed a little bit on pause with the change in administration. This was one of the environmental type grants. And so then we didn't receive communication again until this past June. So we brought it to you in July. We had a few other priority things going on, so we didn't get it to you until this point in time. at last meeting, we did ask for some changes to the scope of the grant. So we did visit with our liaison for the grant, and he did indicate that we could make those changes. So those included, instead of removing the 3 trees at on the north side of the Broadway Plaza, to leave those in place. And so then he agreed that would be fine, shouldn't be a problem. And that also means that would be 6 less trees that we would have to plant somewhere else. So we did make that change here in the memo. Those formal changes will be made to the formal grant agreement after you accept it. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it was a lot of work to try to go through and get all that changed in time to get it approved by you. So, we've got it documented here in the memo. We'll work through that. Planting locations, we did, again, based on the conversation that we had last week, we did, add some tree plantings at the sports complex, and we reduced the tree plantings that we were going to share with the college. They originally were going to accept 12 trees, and they're now down to 3, adding 3 plantings over at the sports complex. And then we also reduced the number of planting in the front yards of the St. Joseph subdivision from 5 to 3. And that was a function of, we intended to have a few more homes built by the end of this grant. And we want to be a little bit more conservative now that we're running a little bit slower, to make sure that we plant trees after the homes are built, and that they don't end up being in the way of homes being built in the future. Also, put another statement in this memo that wasn't in there last time. I guess it was, city would procure contractors to plant the new trees. I think it's important to note too that those that plant the trees do have to be certified arborists for the state of Kansas. So we do have that list of those folks, and we'll be contacting them and sending them out some information so that they can bid on this work. Again, some details for the grant agreement will be made following approval, and our grant liaison has indicated that those changes can happen. Grant acceptance, the deadline for acceptance of the grant is August 22nd, 2025. I think it's important to note with this grant that this has been presented to us as one-time money. It's not this a grant that we expect to have another opportunity for next year. It's okay if you decide not to, that's fine. If you decide that you don't want to replace the downtown trees, that's okay. Discussion with staff, we do believe that they are blocking some stoplights. We believe that that's a safety concern. We know that the roots right now are pushing up on some of the brick planters. So we know some work is going to have to be done. And this grant, the amount of the award is around $92,000, and that would go a long way toward taking care of some of those challenges. I think you did also ask us to go back and take a look at the different types of tree plantings. We had recommended the Canada Red, Cherry for all of those. So we've gone back and taken a look at them. We've researched the Kansas Forestry Service preferred tree list for Northwest and Northeast. Cloud County is right on the western edge of the Northeast, but we know our weather patterns tend to favor Northwest, so we've looked at both of those. We've cross-referenced trees that are on both lists there. Talking with our grant liaison, there's also a gentleman out of Kansas City, Robert Whitman, who had prepared a comprehensive tree list for the Kansas City region. Again, I realize they're a little bit different, but when he went through that evaluation, he did it in a slightly different way, and then he evaluated those trees for their conformity capacity to be good street trees in urban settings, which works well for us because that's what we're looking at in the downtown setting. So there were some different factors that he looked at there. Different factors on both of those lists. Are they native species? Are they do they have drought tolerance? Are they better in sun or shade? Are they going to have pest resistance? Or what's the mature tree type? So we need to keep them below 25 foot to make sure that they work underneath our power lines. Are they going to have flowers? Are they going to have fruit? And then the Whitman study also included a value for landscaping if it's a street tree and their ecosystem value that they provide too. So they placed heavier value on that. We're continuing some conversations with those arborists, with other tree planters in the areas to kind of narrow them down, but we did narrow it down to 4 different types that could work. The Canada Red Cherry that we originally recommended was still on the list. A Japanese tree lilac, which has a white flower, the prairie fire flowering crabapple, which the images online looked absolutely gorgeous, and then a columnar hornbeam tree, which stays mostly green too. But all of them deciduous trees that would work well in this application. So purpose of tonight's discussion is just to determine if you want to proceed with this project, and if so, do you want to accept this grant that's offered for us? And then we can continue to work through the details, means and methods, like things such as watering and that sort of thing as we work through the project. We have the project has to be 100% complete by December 2026. In reviewing our application, we indicated completion by September 30th, 2026. Our rationale for that is get it done before Fall Fest next year. Happy to answer any questions.
I had a couple of questions about the 4 trees. That red cherry tree, what I was reading, it's good for bird food. You know, people complain about the birds downtown. Anyway, we've had crabapple trees down there. They complained about crab apples dropping all over the ground, and so they were taken out. And so we need to remember to think about those things.
A lot of the trees that were recommended
Yeah.
for landscaping all produced flowers and
You're
fruit and
right.
it attracted those
Yeah.
things. So that's kind of one of the challenges, and that is something that we need to visit further with folks about
Yeah.
to see what, you know, what can we do to minimize those nuisances, but still have some very pretty trees downtown.
The Japanese lilac doesn't have fruit, but it attracts butterflies, so.
Dark
Got it.
butterflies.
Those dark butter.
Making good progress, get rid of them.
There are male and female trees too, and it seems
Right.
that the males are less smelly and messy. So
That's accurate.
Right.
That's
It's a misnomer, but that's accurate.
Okay. Anyway, I appreciate
Yeah.
your extra work on that and coming up with some other varieties that might work, and then also just reassessing the locations as well. I didn't see, we talked about this, but the Hood Park trees were those,
They're already in the budget elsewhere,
they're already in the budget elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
and if not, we can figure that out, but.
And my last question is, the Regal Prince Oak that are gonna be at the community college and the school and the sports complex, they're very nice trees. They're columnar though, so I don't know how much shade or much of a shade canopy. Is that the desire of the community college to not necessarily, I don't know, they're great for, columnar trees are great for tight spaces. And blocking like as a screen and such. So I don't know what their purpose is, but I thought perhaps at the rec fields that maybe a columnar, could we amend the language like the other to leave it open that could be changed if there was a better variety? Although those would work, they wouldn't probably provide the shade that would be desirable there. They might at the college, and they'd probably be fine if shade's not the goal, then they're, and depending on the tightness.
So we can visit with them about their goals, and yeah, the grant liaison mentioned that we didn't have to determine the exact type of tree until we went to purchase them for planting. So we have a little bit of time to work through that. So, perfect.
Do you know what the variety is at the plaza? What those trees are?
They're frontier elms.
Such a nerd. I like it. That was a compliment, I meant it very.
Yeah, I know. So with that being said, I think it's a great opportunity that we have the ability now. We know that in the future, we might not have the money to do that, and we have had some concerns with that, so it may eventually, like you said, no matter what tree is chosen, they're living things and things change, so we can't control the future, but we can sure use this opportunity to make it nicer for now and hopefully the next 10 plus 20 years.
I'll move to approve the grant agreement with USDA, Kansas State University, for the city manager to sign the agreement.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lambert, second by Commissioner Hash to approve the downtown tree grant agreement. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign?
No.
Huh?
No.
No, okay, I apologize. Motion passes. Okay, next we have the manager's report.
Mayor, Commissioners, you're pleased to report that the next home at the St. Joe subdivision did begin building this week, so that was good. Nice to see some more construction happening up there again. We'll also be visiting builders in the near future again about an infill lots. Continue those conversations. We haven't given up on those yet, so those will be coming. We also are holding interviews for building inspector. We had preliminary interviews last week with 7 candidates. We received a total of 21 applications, which is great. Brought 7 candidates forward, and of those 4 rose to the top. And we'll invite them back next week for final interviews. So we should have a good candidate in place that they will have time to learn from Bruno before he retires, which is our goal. So that's moving forward nicely. We were also invited to be a part of a steering committee to create a better housing toolkit. It's a project, and it's a project out of, I believe it's out of associated with the K-State School of Architecture. The gentleman that was the chairman of our meeting today is a professor at the K-State School of Architecture, and their goal is to come up with basically a open source type checklist for any developers that want to do housing to help them get started. There's a lot of interest in that now across the state, and so it's a good project. So we're part of the steering committee along with members of K-State Research and Extension, Commerce, Housing, and then different planners and designers and builders and cities from all across the state. So it's kind of a neat working group, but it's a project that will be largely driven by the students at K-State in one of their classes. That's all I have to share right now to answer your questions.
Next, we have the staff reports.
Just want to let you guys know that Monday and Tuesday, intersection of 6th and Lincoln Street received a much needed improvement, and the underground detection got replaced with overhead detection, along with some ADA compliant crosswalk lights and pedestrian crossing buttons. So that, and starting November 3rd, the city will be removing the old KDOT fence that runs along both sides of East 6th Street from Doster Street to the BNSF railroad tracks. This responsibility falls under the city connecting link agreement with KDOT. So I'm going to be sending out letters, letting everybody know that that's going to be taking place. So if anybody wants to know, that fence was originally installed in April of 1962, making it 63 years old. So it's definitely dated, but the time to go. That's all I got.
Larry, good evening. I just got a couple things. One is an update on the state for grant for the bunker gear. Totally, I had 7 applications that I turned in, but only 6 of them were for the bunker gear. That same grant also covered the pre-employment physicals through the hospital. Normally we do our pre-employment screening ourselves, but for this grant, it had to be done by a doctor. So working with Dave and Dr. Ford, we was able to get that done. So all 7 of the applications had the physical reimbursement, but then only 6 of them were for the bunker gear. So far we've received money for 1 of the sets of bunker gear. I just found out today that 3 more sets were approved, and we should have that money soon. And then the last 2 applications I submitted today. So we have the gear, we paid for it, and all applications have been submitted. We're just waiting on the money to come back now. The other thing is we had our Kansas Board of EMS inspection on August 4th. We had a few things we got hit on. The first one was in our ambulances. We have kits that we use to start IVs with. In those kits, there's a little clear tape looking thing that we use to cover IV sites. For 15, 20 years, we've used basically that same kit. We've always kept the extra supplies out of it. This year, they've decided that because those extra supplies don't have an expiration date on it, that they're not allowing us to have that in our trucks anymore. We didn't know that until they came, so we did have 2 on each truck, and maybe 1 truck had 3 of them. It's something we was able to fix right on site, pull them. So we just have to make sure we are purchasing ones with dates on them now. The other things is we didn't have policies for vehicle extrication, mutual aid, or weapons that are found on patients. So I've got 2 of them done, the 3rd one for weapons. Gonna get that one done and then have it Justin look it over. That one might be a little trickier to do. So we'll see how that goes. And then the last thing was our education and training quality assurance. We have to be able to show proof that, Dr. Poor has looked over that with us, and we covered some of the stuff in there with him. And we didn't, again, that's something I've already, got fixed, just in our normal meetings that we have with him every other month. Just by having an agenda and the, signature responsive for that. Any questions on that stuff?
Any other staff reports?
Bruno here again. He had a few notes, just in case there were questions on properties. 425 East 6, that is back in February, you approved the condemnation, starting the condemnation on it. That was the gentleman that showed up and wanted additional time. And they now won't return his phone calls and all of that. And so they still have to take care of some electrical issues, and as far as he knows, so far they haven't done it. So they have until October 27th, and then the project's considered abandoned. And then 211 East 5th is that firehouse that the woman purchased and she hasn't pulled a demo permit. He did notice that they are sorting some things there. It's going kind of slow. I think they're doing it mostly by themselves, it sounds like. So I don't know where that's going to progress to. And then 202 Broadway has been kind of cleaned up, demolished, trees removed. He has here a couple of them that will be starting, but I think maybe they already have 712 East 10th and 325 East 12th.
You see those last two again?
712 East 10th, 325 East 12th. I think the East 10th one maybe has started.
The house is gone.
Is it gone? Okay.
Yeah, check all this one. Okay.
That's all for staff reports. Mayor and Commissioner comments and reports.
I had a question, and I should know the answer to this. We did the lights at 6th and Lincoln. What's the schedule for South End of town? Yeah.
What?
That College Drive,
As soon as I bring it to you next meeting. And then say, yeah.
I knew it was on the horizon, I just didn't know how.
And be ready for.
The only thing I have this evening is there is starting to be appliances accumulating on various places in town. I believe that's one of our nuisance items at outdoors. I believe mostly refrigerators. That can be addressed.
You know, where I've seen there was.
There's one which maybe it will disappear soon, in a driveway on the way to the elementary school, just east of the elementary school on 11th Street. Then there's two, the old Pizza Hut. I want to say it's an old Pizza Hut, by the co-op building. As well as some potential other things maybe at that location.
So thanks there. Warrants some attention.
That's all I have. Entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So
Seconds. Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Lambert, second by Commissioner Hush to adjourn the meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.